Hey guys, welcome back to another video and another trucking market update. So right off the bat, yes, the market is actually reacting to the latest events. All of a sudden, volumes are climbing, tender rejections are climbing, and spot rates are up as well. So why don't we take a look at what actually changed week over week by taking a look at the trucking market, volumes, rejections, diesel prices, and then we'll take a look at the spot market specifically for dry vans, reefers, and flatbeds. Ready? Let's go! As always, we're going to start with the net change in carrier population. So as of last week, we actually saw a decrease of 102 carriers net. So we're still seeing that pattern that started about 4 weeks ago, where 1 week it's positive change, next week it's negative change. So I am guessing we're kind of hitting equilibrium here, more or less, if we just average everything out. But now let's talk about the spot versus contract rates. Now, the dark blue is us in 2024, comparing it to the light blue in 2023. Currently, contract carriers are getting paid 67 cents per mile more than those spot carriers. Now, this is where the interesting part comes in. We're going to take a look at volumes right here and rejections right here. Both charts are the same in the sense of the dark blue represents 2024, the light blue is 2023. So starting with volumes, what you can see is all of a sudden it's no longer following the 2023 pattern, and volumes actually went up in the general market. The question is, what's happening with those rejections? And what's happening with rejections is that they went up pretty sharply. Currently, rejection rates for the first time in a while are over the 5% mark. More specifically, 5.62%. As I always say in my videos, any rejection level that's below 5% means the market is contracting. So obviously, rejection rates are doing slightly better now. And last but not least, let's talk about the diesel prices according to actual truck stops. It's no surprise, those of you who follow oil prices, you know that the price per barrel went up. So of course, diesel prices follow. And currently we saw a pretty significant uptick, unfortunately, to $3.65 per gallon on a national average. Now we're going to talk about the spot market for the three main equipment types, starting with dry vans. This data is by FTR Intel. So week over week, we saw dry van spot rates increase by 7 cents per mile. Year over year, rates are down 3% and they're down 14% compared to the 5-year average. Now, volumes week over week for dry vans are 8.4% higher. Year over year, however, volumes are down 9% and down 36% over a 5-year period. All right, now in order to figure out the better areas for dry vans right now, we look at Sonar's rejections and volumes in the general market for dry vans, and then we make this chart. And actually, I have the DAT or DAT heat map this time to hopefully kind of get everyone on the same page, because I'm still getting a lot of interesting comments when I talk about better areas. All right, number one is the top 5 volume markets for dry vans. Doesn't mean these are the better areas. Ontario, California, Atlanta, Georgia, Detroit, Michigan, Dallas, Texas, and Los Angeles, California. Now, in terms of the top 5 when it comes to rejection rates for dry vans, again, doesn't tell us anything about whether that's a good or bad market, but Cedar Rapids, Iowa, Charleston, West Virginia, Green Bay, Wisconsin, Dubuque, Iowa, and Des Moines, Iowa. Now, putting the volumes and the rejections together, we can figure out the top 5 places where more contract freight ends up on the spot market. Those top 5 are Green Bay, Wisconsin, Ontario, California, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, Atlanta, Georgia, and Houston, Texas. Now, this just tells us the volume side, but we need to look at capacity. And this is what I do using the DAT heat map, but let's take a look on the actual map. Maybe this is going to be easier because I know a lot of folks are very visual. So let's start with Green Bay, Wisconsin. This is this dot right here. You can see the market is lukewarm, but look at the surrounding area. The bluer it is, the worse it is in terms of capacity. There's way more, there are way more trucks than there are loads. So this is a lukewarm market, but surrounded by overcapacity. Next, we have our Ontario, California, and that is right here. Hot market, it's red. The redder it is, the better it is, but look at what surrounds it. Arizona is blue, Nevada is blue, Northern California is lukewarm. Yeah, it's a good market by itself, but they're going to be deadheading trucks. All right, next we have Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, which is right here. It's pretty much a red market, but there are deadheading trucks, unfortunately, especially from the northeast and from like the West Virginia area. Then we have Atlanta, Georgia, red market. You know, it's a hot market, but surrounded by blue areas. They're going to be all those trucks deadheading. And finally, we have Houston, Texas, also a red market, as well as part of Dallas, Texas, but again, surrounded by overcapacity. What you guys have to understand when I show you the better market areas, we also have to keep in mind what other people around us are doing, right? When we go to those market areas. All these hot markets are surrounded by trucks. So those trucks are going to be diluting the situation. And that's why you're not going to see some crazy rate per mile out of a place like Houston, Texas, or California or whatnot. Now let's do the same thing for reefers. So week over week on the spot market, reefers saw an increase of 8 cents per mile. However, year over year, it's 0.4% less than it paid this time last year. And comparing to the 5-year average, it's 10% less. Now, volumes on the spot market for reefers actually increased by 7.7% week over week and are 3% higher than this time last year. However, over the past 5 years, they are down 33%. All right, again, in order to figure out the better areas or where there's movement for reefers, we're going to look at Sonar's rejections and volumes and then kind of unscramble all this data. The top 5 market areas where there is more reefer volume are Joplin, Missouri, Allentown, Pennsylvania, Lakeland, Florida, Joliet, Illinois, and Atlanta, Georgia. The top 5 in terms of rejections are Dubuque, Iowa, Boston, Massachusetts, which is new, Rock Island, Illinois, Springfield, Massachusetts, which is also new, and Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Again, as a reminder, if you're one of those that skips to your equipment type and didn't see me talk about dry vans, these two do not tell us whether these are better market areas. What we do is we put together the volumes and rejections to figure out where the top markets are, where more contract freight ends up on the spot market. It tells us a lot about volume. So those are Joliet, Illinois, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Chicago, Illinois, Joplin, Missouri, and Atlanta, Georgia. Now, again, we're going to ignore this because I'm actually going to show you the map. All right, let's talk about the Chicago, Illinois area first. So we have Joliet, Illinois, we have Chicago, Illinois, pretty warm markets, but what you're going to see is deadheading trucks from South Illinois as well as from Iowa right here, diluting the situation. Milwaukee, Wisconsin is a warm market and it's a little bit safer just because it's not surrounded by overcapacity from all sides. Now, Joplin, Missouri is just a lukewarm market, nothing special, and it does have areas of overcapacity that will be deadheading to the area that has more loads than trucks. And Atlanta, Georgia, I mean, yes, it's constantly one of the hot markets. You can see it's a pretty warm market, but it's a tiny market surrounded by blue, which means that people are going to be deadheading. We have easily deadheaded from Jacksonville, Florida to Georgia, to Atlanta, Georgia to grab our next load. And this was not just one. So something you have to keep in mind is, yes, Atlanta, Georgia seems like a very good market by itself, but it's surrounded by all those trucks that are going to dilute the situation. Now, flatbeds. Flatbeds saw an increase of 9 cents per mile week over week, and the rates are currently 0.4% higher than they were this time last year. However, if we're looking at the past 5 years, it's down 6%. Now, in terms of volume, week over week, volumes are up 7.9%, and compared to this time last year, volumes are up 22%, but they're down 19% compared to the 5-year average. Now, in terms of flatbeds, let's look at it a little bit closer using truck stop data. This is the load map. The darker it is, the more loads come out of that area. Nothing really changes. I mean, the amount of loads changes, but the markets which are saturated with loads don't really change. It's always the West Coast, it's always the South, and some parts of the Midwest as well as the East Coast. Now, in terms of capacity pretty much follows where the loads go, right? So a lot of capacity in Texas and California, not so much in the Pacific Northwest, a lot of it in the East Coast and the South. Now let's talk about the load to truck ratio. By the way, someone asked me, what is the load to truck ratio on a national level? So currently it's 0.99 loads per truck, so less than a load per truck for flatbeds if we're taking into account everything. Now, red is overcapacity. These are places that, when you average them out, unfortunately have less than 1 load per truck. Beige is about 1 load per truck averaged out. Yellow, which is only Maryland and Delaware, is about 2 loads per truck, and green is over 3 loads per truck. So yeah, there was definitely some positive movements in the freight market week over week. And while not everybody is going to feel those changes because they're so specific, that's one of the biggest problems, right? They're so specific to certain market areas. The point is, and the fact is, yes, there were some changes in the general market as well as in the spot market for all 3 equipment types. And that change was, in general, positive. Now, the question that I personally had was, well, that's nice, but how long is this actually going to last? And is this trend expected to last? Well, like I said in my previous video, I think what we're going to start seeing is that in the future, in the very near future, there will be more loads going to those areas that were affected by the hurricanes to help those areas rebuild and to provide the supplies necessary. But also mix that in with the seasonality, because we are currently entering the holiday season. Actually, we are already in the holiday season technically, and this is the time when volumes do usually start going up. But there is still one huge question mark that is holding consumers as well as businesses back, and that's the election. I make it a point to try and read pretty much all comments that are left under the videos. Sometimes I'm able to reply and like them, sometimes I'm not, but the point is I read them. And one of the things that I have learned from those folks who have been in the trucking game for much longer than I have is that nothing is certain during the election year, and we should expect instability until there is certainty on that front. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining me and watching today. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week and weekend. Stay safe, stay healthy, and keep learning. See you in the next video.